All right, Governor Nixon vetoes that school bill. What does all that mean? Lots of talk about Normandy and the Normandy School District. Dr. James Scholes joins us once again. He's from the Show Me Institute, and you're the education policy analyst. Good morning, Doctor. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. It's great to be with you.
All right, so since this bill was vetoed, there's no new law, so we're all assuming that it's the same law as last summer. However, it's a completely different landscape today than it was last summer.
Oh, absolutely. What has changed really is regulation. So instead of having a new law that's going to govern the transfer policies, we have new regulations from the State Board of Education and from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So they've stepped in, changed a lot of things, especially in the Normandy School District. And so next year's program is going to look a bit different from this year's program.
The parents spent years suing to enforce the current law as it stands. The courts came back every single time and said, this is what the law says. If you're in an unaccredited school district, you can transfer out. That law is still on the books, but it's been unregulated out of existence?
Well, essentially, especially for Normandy. So in Normandy, the State Board of Education voted to dissolve the district, so they're basically hitting a reset on the district. They're restarting the district, and when they did that, they changed it from being unaccredited to having no accreditation status. And so they're saying now that it's not unaccredited, that students don't have to, you don't have to give them the right to transfer, and they're allowing school districts to choose whether or not they're going to take the students back. And as we saw, the Francis Howell School District, who had among the largest number of students, chose not to allow the students to return. And so they've basically changed the accreditation of a district, circumventing the law. And another thing they did is they said students who weren't in the school districts, whether it was Normandy or Riverview Gardens, if you weren't attending those schools, then you don't have the right to transfer. And that, I think, opens them up for even more lawsuits, because you have parents who lived in the district, who paid taxes, but recognized the schools weren't good and sent their kids to private schools. And now that they want to access the transfer program, they said, you can't access your own tax dollars because you chose to put your kid in a private school. And so I think that there are lawsuits all over the place, I think, with this.
All right, so Nixon vetoes this. Is there a chance of an override?
It'll be a long shot. I mean, in the Senate, they have enough votes from what they passed, a few weeks ago or months ago. The House, they were about 20 votes shy of having enough votes to override. And I think it's unlikely that they'll be able to do so.
So these students that were transferred last year, how did their performance improve, or did it at all?
We haven't seen yet. So nobody has really released that information. And so that's what, to me, is a little bit frustrating, is a lot of these decisions haven't really been based on actual information and actual data. One of the claims we always heard was that the best students are going to be fleeing away from these districts. Well, I've been actually looking at the data, and it looks like the students who left and transferred were very similar to the students who stayed behind in terms of how they performed. And so we don't know, and we won't know for some time, how the students actually did this year relative to the students who stayed behind.
Which is the whole point of this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the point of this is to give the kids opportunity to have a better education. I can say from anecdotal stories from families I've spoken to, many of them have said it's been a great school year. They felt like they were really challenged and they were really learning. And the biggest difference for them was just the atmosphere and the culture of the school. They felt like they were in a place that was safer, where they could, walk down the hallway and not be afraid to bump into someone. I mean, it was a really different experience for the students who transferred out to these schools.
The dirty little secret, James Scholes from the Show Me Institute education policy analyst, is that the Normandy School District was unaccredited, or became unaccredited, after they accepted students because they had to, because of the transfer law, from an unaccredited neighboring district. So Normandy followed the law and is now getting screwed because of it.
Well, yeah, they merged in another district that was struggling into Normandy, and that certainly hurt them and brought them down. But Normandy hasn't been doing very well. I mean, for the past 10 or 20 years, they've been on the brink with provisional accreditation. So it's not like it's a place that was doing wonderfully. And even when they merged in the district, there were people saying, why are you merging Wellston into Normandy when Normandy's already struggling? Why not merge it some other place? And so that was a criticism then, and it certainly didn't help them to have a district merged in with them. And I think that's why they didn't simply close Normandy and merge it with other districts. I think that's one of the reasons that they said, let's hit reset, cancel all the contracts, and start this district afresh so that it wouldn't spill over into other places.
Right, but if it's a struggling district, barely keeping its head above water in terms of grades and test scores, all the more reason to reject these students from this other district. So, and yet here we have, districts that are doing very well that are saying thank you very much, but your transfer students are not welcome here.
Well, that's the most interesting thing to me is that the students or the districts that were receiving students actually came out on top financially. This was a profitable venture for them. But the problem is that school districts and schools in general, public schools in general, don't look at things in terms of profit and loss, and they look at things from a very different lens from a business perspective. From a business perspective, this was beneficial to the receiving districts. They made money on this.
Doctor, I'm short on time. I got 30 seconds. What happens now?
Well, now we follow the state regulations. We'll see many more court cases, and it's going to be a continuing saga for months and possibly years to come.
What a debacle. Dr. James Scholes, Show Me Institute Education Policy Analyst. James, always welcome to hear your voice. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, 7:58, St. Louis Closet Company.